What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of 10K on the Bay. My name is Chris, and today I have an awesome episode for you where we're going to actually talk to 3 resellers in Australia. There's a lot of differences between selling in different countries, and I just think it'd be really interesting to talk to a few people and see how different it is reselling in a different country. There's some huge differences, and I'm super excited to get into it. Amanda, why don't you give us a quick introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into reselling.
Hey, well, I'm Amanda. I basically started reselling because I'm actually disabled and I can't get a job elsewhere and everything. I wanted to earn some money from home. I originally was selling artwork and I decided to get into selling on eBay when I realized that so many other people were doing it, basically.
Awesome. And Darren?
I started reselling in end of November of last year. I was working in corporate sales for just over 3 years. I kind of got into the reselling thing because a friend of mine was like, you should watch this guy, Gary Vee. He has some awesome YouTube motivation, but just business intel. And I thought this was really cool. And I started flipping iPhone 6s after the 7 came out. Mm-hmm. And then the whole garage sale hustle thing started because I thought it's amazing that you can buy something for $1 and sell it on eBay or Facebook Marketplace for $50, $60. I was like, that's crazy. Everybody should be doing this. And since then, I've just kind of been trying to build it as much as I can.
Awesome. And Rose?
So I have a 6-year-old girl, and when I got pregnant with her, I left the normal workforce and I was a makeup artist, self-employed for 5 years. But now that she's starting school this year, she obviously is gone for 5 days. And my makeup business was me working from 5 a.m. till 2-3 p.m. all weekend at weddings. And I would basically never see my daughter if I kept doing it. And so I stumbled across the reseller community on Instagram. I've always loved thrifting. I used to work at a thrift store when I was 18. So I knew all about it, but I didn't know you could actually sell it on eBay. And I was like, this is amazing. This feels like some kind of dream. I get paid to do what I'm already doing. I'm not full-time or anything, but it's definitely helped my savings and all of that. And yeah, I just got into it for a paid hobby, I guess. I work at the hospital, but I definitely do this around it and I love to do it.
Awesome. So we're going to get into some juicy details, hopefully, what it's like to resell in your country. So it's definitely different. Here in the States, there's a lot of thrifters. Thrift shops are abundant. I live in California. There are 200 thrift stores within 30 miles of where I live. There's garage sales. There are church sales. There are hundreds and hundreds of shopping centers where you could do retail arbitrage. There's also wholesale opportunities. There's an endless number of items to sell. So, and I've been selling everything just to test it all and sharing some of these ideas on the internet. But let's just start with, and we're also at different levels in our reselling journeys. So Amanda, why don't you start with the type of items you can find, and then is there a particular niche you would like to sell in?
Well, I would actually really like to sell in electronics because it sells for so high and so quickly. But I've only really been able to find clothes. I've found a couple of shoes, but even the shoe sections in the thrift stores are really, really small. I imagine they must just throw out a lot of stuff.
The Australian shoe game is not great.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically I've been focusing my efforts on clothes, mainly jeans, because there's usually a whole rack of jeans over most of the other stuff.
Excellent. And before we go into where we're going to go into where you can find items in just a second. But Darren, what kind of items do you like to sell, and what kind of items are you actually selling?
I love selling iPhones because that's kind of what started me into it. I found like at the end of last year, beginning of this year, and maybe just like a kind of like a tip, if there's ever an upgrade of new iPhone, new Samsung, people that have been in like phone contracts and plans, they're ending, so they just want to upgrade and they just want to make a little bit of money on their phone, and they're willing to sell it for a lot. And it's not uncommon that you can make between $70 and maybe like $150 flipping an iPhone. And that was fascinating to me. So I love iPhones in particular, just because they're also, it's anything like that's got a strong brand, people are more comfortable to buy on the secondhand market, I found. More recently, like through garage sales, I found bigger items that you can't post. There are a lot of like closed buy and sell groups on Facebook where people will just like eat up coffee machines, actually like kitchen appliances go really, really well, and you can like buy for 5, sell for 50 sort of thing, and keep it going. Very hard to scale, but in terms of getting a nice 10x on a product, that's fun.
Awesome.
Can I just bug in really quickly?
Sure.
And go get my computer charger because it just said it was gonna die.
No, go for it.
2 secs.
Go for it. So Darren, I know you love selling iPhones. Are there other items that are more abundant that you sell more of?
As of late, I know we were just saying like the shoe game's hard in Australia, but I found like, again, because I mainly buy my inventory from garage sales. In fact, like 90% of it's from garage sales on a Saturday morning. Shoes, like it's really easy to come by. I found like Nikes, Adidas, and like people go, oh, I don't want to. You can take these shoes for $1 and like confidently pop them on eBay for 30.
I'm
30
the
plus.
worst. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, so shoes actually became like majority of what I've been doing in the last couple of months since like the iPhone thing died down.
Gotcha.
It's funny that you say that actually, because I found a lady down the street. She had put out a heap of Nikes and all Converse and Vans just out on the road to pick up for free, and I'm like, oh yay! And
That's a win. That's a win.
What?
Massive win.
That's so intense.
So, Rose, what do you like to sell, and what are you selling?
I sell women's clothes, and I like to sell women's clothes. Just because that's what I have always bought for myself personally. So I know the brands and I know what people are after, and it's just what I'm good at. And I find it takes less storage than a lot of things because it's all so compact. Like I only have a 2-bedroom apartment, and I hate clutter, and so I find I'm selling women's clothes that can all be smooshed away out of sight. I essentially, if I had like all this room, I would love to get into like vintage things like Thrift Love sells. She sells all the amazing, like brassware and home decor, and I'm like, I love watching her stories, but I just don't have the room for that. So I focus on women's wear.
I think her name is Loretta, and she's excellent. She sells all kinds of random housewares and house goods, and you can get your average dollar price up quickly. When you sell more rare household items in the States, the largest category used to be clothing, and now it's home goods.
Oh, really?
So it's actually shifted. I don't know what the market's like in Australia. Not that the clothing market's not huge in the US, it is, but housewares is now the #1 category.
Can I also just throw in there, one of the things, like following Rose's Instagram, it's actually really clever, I think, like the way you go about it is really systematic, I think, because you go like it's $1 or $2 rack. It always seems to sell. You always sell it like, what is it, like $15 to $20 plus shipping, and it's just a process of building and building and building. And I think especially for beginners, that's an awesome way to get into it, and then it's just like a numbers game, and the more you can list, the more opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really clever.
Oh, thanks,
So.
Darren. Yeah, I kind of I just got lucky. The Salvation Army here. First of all, our thrift stores are nowhere near as big as yours. Like yours look like absolute warehouses, and ours look like someone's grandma's old retirement village unit. Like that's what our thrift stores look like. They're not big. One of the thrift stores that I visit has trolleys. The rest is just like little baskets, and you've just got to carry around your little basket, and you end up with like 10 baskets. So it's just not on the same scale. But the salvos here have everything on rotation for 5 weeks. So for the first 2 or 3 weeks, it's full price. And then second last week, it's 50% off. And then the last week, everything gets moved to a $2 rack. They don't have a choice. And so the $2 rack is where I pounce. So I don't even bother looking at anything that's over $2. I don't look at any of the other racks. I just go $2 rack, and if it's not on there, I'm not interested, because things in Australia are just too expensive. Shipping's too expensive. So if it's not for $2 or like around that price, it's not worth selling. You know what I mean? Some things just aren't worth selling. And I sell a lot of mall brands, like, what would your equivalent be? I don't know what your mall brands are like.
No worries. I understand. So I want to dive right into this a little bit more with the culture. Is there a lot of donation centers? What do people, are there, I mean, here people buy way too much stuff. Is it similar? Because when people clear out stuff, it's so they can buy new stuff. It's like a never-ending thing of consumerism here. People don't have the space. Is this similar?
Yeah, definitely similar. But the thrift stores are not as big still. So I don't know if the thrift stores just go through their stock a lot faster, or if like maybe
they
just
reject a lot of things.
As much. Yeah.
Our thrift stores reject a lot of things. Like when I was younger, I tried to donate a bag of things, and they went through it in front of my face and were like, "We don't want this. We don't want this. We don't want this. We don't want this." You know, it's not saying that you won't find a bunch of really terrible things at the thrift store that have gotten through, but they definitely, if you're going to show up with something that they can't sell, they're not going to accept it. They are very obsessed with the fact that they're not a dumping site. And so I think that's what it helps keep them small.
So it's a little bit more of a boutique mentality. Here they accept.
That's what they think.
Everything. That's what they think.
That's what
and because of that, like a lot of the things that you can find in our thrift stores, I mean, disagree with me if you like, but I think they're really overpriced. Like it's almost like they're the resellers.
So here, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Australians, we don't have big designers. We have Australian big designers, but we don't have big designers here. And so they latch on to anything that's like over $50 and they think that means designer. And so even if it's like from Kmart, if it came out 50 years ago, they go vintage designer. Like we don't have designers. And so they will latch onto anything and try and price it up to say it's a designer.
By the way, I hate that word. That word vintage is thrown around way too easily.
So everything is vintage.
Don't get me wrong, I've used it because it works, but
I know, 10 years old vintage, and then people definitely use it too. If it's stained, it's vintage. If it's older, if it's damaged, it's vintage. So
that's it.
We see that here a little bit. So how about, let's talk about other areas. Dan, you had mentioned garage sales. Do any of you use other apps that as a sourcing tool?
Gumtree.
Gumtree's like
Darren.
our what is it? Craigslist. Our
Craigslist.
version of Craigslist.
Mm.
Yeah, that's probably a really good one.
Because I wonder if you can get items before they hit the thrift store. And that's how I've shifted the majority of my sourcing to garage sales, because at the end of it, they take it to the donation center. And one more comment on that is that here, I believe our largest thrift company is Goodwill. And here, 72 of those stores have their own eBay store. So the stuff
Really?
No
it
way.
doesn't even make it to the thrift store. So
Wow.
72
Oh my
direct
God.
items, and the largest eBay store has 600,000 items sold a year. So
Oh
we're
my
talking a
God.
massive.
Here's
Yeah.
a little thing I've noticed. My mum, she volunteers at the Salvos,
Mhm.
and one of the things that she's noticed is she's been in like a couple of different stores, is that a lot of the staff there, when they're like rummaging through new stuff that's come in, I've no doubt that some of them are resellers themselves,
Mm.
and they get like first pick sort of thing. So if you're an Aussie and you want to get first pick, maybe go work at a thrift store. And you'd,
I
I don't think
definitely,
it's a good thing. I don't think it's like, I think it's almost like stealing from charity. But there are people that do that.
It's
Well, it's
against
all
their
about the
policy to
hustle,
do
isn't
that
it?
here.
Yeah, no, it's definitely against the policy.
And even though it's against policy, I have noticed that there are bulk deals happening behind the scenes at
Mm,
every single thrift store
yeah,
that I have been to. They'll say, we don't sell in bulk, and I'll see somebody in the back taking
yeah,
full
Mhm.
truckloads. So it definitely
Wow.
exists. I'm sure
yeah,
it's the same in Australia, whoever
yeah, for
has the
sure.
relationship.
I've never seen that at our thrift stores. Like I've never seen we don't sell in bulk because they don't have bulk to sell.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, like there's no one like trying to buy bulk from the thrift store because the rack's like this big. Like I can
Mm.
understand in America from seeing all your videos, but I don't think it's really I have never even seen another reseller in the wild. Like I go to the thrift stores all the time and I have never seen another reseller like frantically going through racks. I don't
I've
know if they're around.
I've definitely seen a few at the thrift stores that
Really?
I've been to. Yeah, definitely. I find that like they come over with their phone and they start looking at what I'm looking at, trying to
Mm.
see like if
Stop.
I'm in front of
Wow,
something good. It's really
Oh my
awkward.
that's
God.
cringe.
This morning, my thrift store was having a sale. There was 60 people outside before it opened at 9 in the morning. So
Oh my
it's very,
God.
very competitive here. Even though there's a lot more supply, it's extremely competitive. And I would
Yeah.
say half of them were searching for themselves and half were resellers. So
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
never
I,
seen anything like that.
it's true. It's very. And then
That's
so let's go over possibly new with tags items, because here it seems like once people cross over 500 or 1,000 items, they start seeking new items because they're replenishable. Is there manufacturing in Australia where you see there's like a local distributors of product? Do you think that have any of you experimented with wholesale?
I've actually looked at it just recently. I went into an outlet to just have a feel for what their prices were, and I had a look. Because they had a clearance section, and
Mhm.
it was Nike shoes clearance, and I had a look at the prices, and then I looked them up on the eBay comps, and they were selling it for $20 more expensive on clearance than what was actually selling new on eBay. So
Wow.
dude,
I
that's so
don't
hectic.
yeah, I don't know how people do retail arbitrage if they're working with those sorts of prices to begin with. I
Wow.
mean, they
Oh
might
my
be able to get
God.
a discount if they bought a heap of them, but I couldn't imagine getting enough of a discount to actually make it work. I don't know.
yeah.
Wow.
I just want to share
Darren,
two interesting ideas on that really quick. Is
Hmm.
on the I've met 2 resellers that make over $200,000 a year, US, and one works at the mall at a shoe store called Journeys, and then the other one works at the parts counter of a Harley Davidson motorcycle dealership. And both of them capitalize by, when the sale's coming, they know because they're internal, and they're taking all the clearance items before they hit the rack. I can't believe that exists, but I always wonder if in different countries, because I noticed that too. Go ahead.
Can I ask when that happens? Like, are they putting those items on Amazon? Is that like the go-to?
Both Amazon and eBay, yes.
And eBay. Okay. All right.
We'll just point out we don't have Amazon. That's another big one.
That was a big question.
Sure.
Is
We
there
don't
an
have
equivalent?
Amazon.
No.
What was that?
Yes.
No, there's no equivalent.
Wow.
It's supposedly coming like end of this year, beginning of next year.
coming.
It's like, rumors.
So that might be interesting.
It's been coming forever.
You guys to leverage the reselling community for a totally new market once it does hit.
Absolutely. It's a big deal, especially like retail arbitrage stuff.
I'm super excited for when it does come, but the Australian government is at least 50 years behind every other Western government. And they don't quite know how the internet works or e-commerce or anything. And so they've just gone like, oh, people are shopping on eBay. So now they've added another tax onto us that's just passed. So now we're paying, because we already, then they call it the Netflix tax, because we're using the internet to source cheaper things overseas. And now they're like, we don't like that, so we're going to charge you a Netflix tax, which has been added onto eBay and Netflix and all of those things. So even when Amazon does come, it's not going to be the same as what you guys have. It's going to be like 1,000 times harder and more expensive.
Okay, so this is a good segue into the next section, which we're going to talk about the difference of shipping between the US and Australia. I think this is a big topic, and you guys have a totally different system when it comes to shipping. So Amanda, do you want to start with a couple of thoughts about shipping, and we'll just take turns?
Well, it's definitely more expensive. They have 2 main options, and they have basically a small parcel and a large parcel, and they're gauged by weight. One is up to 500 grams, which is about a pound, and then the other one's up to 3 kilos. I'm not sure what that is in pounds.
Just under 6. Yep, around 6 pounds.
Yeah, so there are things that you can ship in an envelope and actually try and get away with it like that. But the problem with that is that they don't have tracking. They don't have tracking on those items, only on the parcels, which makes it hard when you're selling on eBay. You kind of have to have the tracking to back yourself up. So,
sure.
Yeah.
What does it cost for the 500 gram and the 3 kilo package?
Well, I've actually had a lot of really far away sales, so I'm not sure if it's a little
So
bit.
it's not flat rate.
It's
you can. Everything of mine is flat rate.
Yeah, what I've been doing hasn't been flat rate. It's just been calculated by those weights in the parcel. So I've had, like, in the 500 grams, it's been about $7.40 so far on average, and then it's been about $12 on the 3 kilogram parcel. So yeah.
Okay. And I just, from a quick Google search, it pulled up at Australian dollars 70 cents to $1 for the US, so a little bit of a weaker dollar. Aaron, what is your experience with the shipping? Obviously, with small electronics, they're under the 500.
Yeah, generally speaking, especially products that I like source from garage sales, I try to stay away from shipping as much as I can. I did it initially, not as much more so more recently, but initially I would just pop stuff on. There are a lot of like closed buy and sell Facebook groups in Melbourne. I'm not sure about like the other cities there, but in Melbourne there are so many, and I actually found it really easy to sell electronics in particular on these groups.
Mm.
So shipping wasn't really an issue for me. I think more recently, popping like shoes on eBay, that's just like a flat. I don't use anymore. I don't generally Australia Post for like shipping of shoes. I use like an alternative, which is mildly cheaper, Officeworks, and I haven't had any issues. But yeah, that's I stay away from shipping if I can. I guess that's kind of like my model.
How is the speed of Australian Post? Is it fast?
It depends. It
Like
depends, and things
before.
get lost.
Sometimes I get people going, oh, I practically got it overnight, and then sometimes I'm looking at the tracking and it's taken a week and a half. I guess it just depends on who you got and if they felt like scanning it on the day or if they didn't. Like, it's very interesting.
Not to like plug Officeworks or anything, but if it's like sent to their like dispatch before 2 p.m. And it goes to like anywhere on the east coast of Australia, it often gets there within like a day or two.
Cool.
Wow.
Not a pay that.
Are there dimension restrictions? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but a pair of shoes would still fit within the 3
If you're
kilos.
gonna put,
Yeah.
if it's like a pair of sneakers, you can wrap them up, shove them in a 3 kilo satchel, and it'll be the same. But if you start going into like boxes and stuff, if you have like a pair of shoes that you need to pack in a box, you're gonna have to actually use Australia Post, not just eBay labels. Because eBay labels, if you print off an eBay label, it's like mildly cheaper. You still use Australia Post, but for some reason it's cheaper.
I actually found a workaround on that one.
Oh, really? How?
Yeah, because I had some electronics that I wanted to ship off in the parcel, and but it was in a fairly big box, and I'm like, okay, so I put the box inside of the satchel and sent it out the satchel, and it still went through like that. So
I know Urban. Oh gosh, I know some Australians like use the satchel as if it was wrapping paper to try and like sneak it in. But yeah, you basically got to like be able to close it for that to happen.
Is a satchel provided by Australian Post?
No, you got to buy it off eBay.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird.
We don't get shipping discounts either, like no shipping supply discounts.
Tremendously different. Darren, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I don't really have anything to add on that. It's you buy your Australia Post like cheaper satchels from eBay. You can't get them directly from Australia Post. That's weird.
That's ridiculous.
They have their own eBay store.
Is it a private company or is it government owned?
That's government.
And does it? Our postal service runs at a deficit. It doesn't make money. Is yours also not profitable? Do you know?
I'm not really sure.
I have no idea.
I would assume they're not. It's profitable.
Yeah, I would imagine it's profitable.
Really?
That's a good question, actually.
Is Officeworks private?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there restrictions?
Officeworks is our version of Staples.
Oh.
That's what that is. So they came out with their own mailing system. I only know that because I watch The Office and their competitors are Staples.
That's cool. Because we have a similar, like, FedEx is one of our third-party carriers, and they bought a printing service called Kinko's a long time ago, but it's not as sophisticated that they could run that.
Australia Post turned a profit in Q1 of 2017. Yeah, they're profitable.
Cool.
It's so interesting because in the States, for parcels under 500 grams, there's every single ounce, which is
There's a tier.
There's a tier for every single amount. So that's very interesting that it would all be grouped into one. And so the satchel, what's the size of a satchel for the 500?
Do you want me to get some so I can show you?
Sure.
I'll get you the eBay satchels. 2 seconds.
Cool. This is cool because I have a lot of UK and a lot of Australian sellers reach out to me, and it's so different. So I can't really offer any. Thank you so much for getting that stuff for us.
Oh, that's okay. It's like literally right next to me. So I always have just these 2 satchels, and that's all I pretty much ever ship in.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the 500 kilo satchel from eBay. So that's what we close it like that. So it ends up being like that. So it doesn't matter like if it's 1 gram or 500 grams, it's going in this, and it's going to cost the buyer $7.15.
Wow.
But on the other hand, I'll say that even though that seems like, and it's expensive, Australians are used to paying a lot of money. So there's no Australian eBayer who's expecting free shipping. They might have a crack, but they're like, in general, I don't get asked for free shipping. Australians as a whole, we know we're going to have to pay a butt ton for absolutely everything. And so it's just part and parcel. So I don't get asked for free shipping. They just go, yeah, $7.15 shipping. That seems normal.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree with that, like within eBay, that people are used to paying shipping, but I think like outside of eBay, outside of like that family, free shipping, it's a thing. You can get it from Asia really easily from here.
Yeah.
Does Office Works have a cheaper option than $7?
No, it's actually slightly dear. It's $7.50.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the 3 kilo. Is that 3 kilo? 3 kilo. So that's the 3 kilo. And so the little plastic, we put the slip in there in this little thing, and then we take that off. And so I don't weigh pretty much anything. I can like, if it's jeans, I just automatically list it for this. If it's a small shirt, I list it for that. So I barely touch my weights.
You can use larger parcel bags, poly bags, basically, but they need to be under 3 kilos. So I actually have like quite large poly bags for the 3 kilo ones, just in case I do need to fit something quite thick into it, because I find that those eBay ones are fairly small for the amount of weight that's supposed to go in them.
I've never had a piece of clothing not fit in them. What are you selling?
No, just the things like I said before with the electronics and stuff.
Oh yeah. See, I only sell clothes. Yeah, for sure.
So I have an idea, and I don't know if this would work or not, but one of the largest eBay sellers in my group uses a virtual assistant in the Philippines to scan Facebook Marketplace, and in your case, Gumtree, locally, and compare the price on eBay to whatever the person is asking, and building a spreadsheet with the phone number of the person. So when he wakes up, he and his wife call all the people on, they're actually in Canada. They call all the people down the line, and they arrange local meetups because they don't have thrift stores. So I wonder if that would work in your area if you were trying to contact people and you just had it all in a row within 30 miles and you were just picking up inventory. And they also have ads saying, we're looking for clothing, shirts, video games, iPhones. And people will reach out to them because they're just being creative on looking for a way to source inventory. And I wonder if you think that would work in Australia or no.
I would definitely try it. That's all I can say.
Absolutely, especially like in the cities where like people are densely populated, then that could make a lot of sense. That's actually very clever.
And you could avoid.
Darren's gonna do it.
Let me know if it works. You could avoid potentially having a brick and mortar, because that's what the point of a brick and mortar is, to have people drop stuff off. But it's so extremely expensive to do that. So I wonder if that would work as sourcing, because when people are basically giving away clothing because they have no space. So I wonder if you put up, if Rose started her own moving service and she was just picking up items that instead of, well, here, I believe that in the wealthier areas, especially, the time required to take the stuff to the thrift store is not even worth it. They're actually landfilling or just disposing of their items because they don't have the time to even go to the thrift. I wonder.
I know. Sorry. I just moved to the city actually, and I was looking around at the thrift stores in this city, and there's not many thrift stores actually in the CBD that have many donation places that I've found so far. There's a few that do, but there's a lot of thrift stores that don't. So I imagine it would be hard for people that live in the city to actually donate their stuff. They would have to go to a very particular thrift store in order to do it. So goodness knows what they're doing with their stuff. Yeah.
I think you would have to live in, like for women's clothes, I think you would have to live right in Sydney CBD or Melbourne. I live an hour and a half south of Sydney. I have lived in Sydney before, but I live an hour and a half south of Sydney, so it's regional Australia. And yeah, I can tell you the designers are not popping around here. I would have to be picking up more brands, and yeah, it wouldn't be very cost effective at all, because as Darren said, the prices that I'm selling for, I'm picking up for 2, but I'm selling for between 15 and 25. Like that's pretty much it. So it just really wouldn't make much sense. And another thing, we don't have Amazon. We don't have Poshmark.
Yes.
And we don't have a good equivalent. We've got lots of tryhards, but I went on the Australian equivalents of Poshmark, and it was a very sad affair, and I deleted them.
Which one was that? Which one?
I went on Depop,
okay.
And that was just a bunch of girls wanting to sell their singlets for $60 and then pay you $2 for Doc Martens. And then there's another one called Carousel.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was not great either. So
yeah, I tried Carousel. I tried Carousel as well, and I had no interest. Spent all this time listing on it, and there's just nothing happening. But yeah,
I know.
But I'm thinking, I don't know. I think in Canada, Carousel does all right. I'm not too sure.
Mm-hmm.
I know Depop's in the UK.
I wanted to also ask, in the States and in Canada, there's a company called 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and they actually charge to pick up. And that's a thriving, imagine you getting paid to pick up people's stuff for you to resell. That business exists here because people's time is more valuable than driving to the thrift. So they have trucks and they drive around on certain days and pick up. Rose, it might be worth your time to go to Sydney once a month if you're sourcing thousands of items to bring back. I wonder if that's possible. I don't know, but I'm curious because as the network of resellers is growing, even on Instagram, locally, I feel like if I were to buy a truckload of something, I would be able to sell it to all the local people nearby because there's just so many people who don't want a real job. That's sort of how I see it.
You would sell it wholesale?
But,
would you sell it wholesale?
I might sell wholesale, or we might even group together on like a eBay space. I think would work.
Oh, okay.
Where a few people share one warehouse space, because it's difficult without scaling relatively large here to have your own space outside your home to do eBay. But it's also nice to go home and have no inventory in your house.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially with Amazon coming, like reseller warehouses. That's really clever.
We have a lot of I live in Silicon Valley, and there's a lot of co-working spaces where you can you can rent a room in a room of 30 different hacker spaces where people are developing and inventing things together. It's very nice, but there is no such thing for eBay even here. And I think it would be nice because you can learn. I spent 40 hours the last 3 weeks thrifting with women because I want to learn how to sell dresses because they're expensive. there's not a lot of men's items over $40, but there are a lot of dresses that sell for over $40, even pre-owned. So yeah, I wonder about the co-working, thrifting spaces in Australia. You guys could be ahead of the curve if you make up your own little.
I don't know if there's enough resellers in a condensed area. I'm
I was
not
just
sure.
gonna say that, girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that I know that the closest reseller that I know at all is 2.5 hours away from me.
Wow.
Yeah, Australia is more spaced out, but I definitely agree with you, Chris. Like it's
You're
trending
in
up. Like
Melbourne.
people, yeah. I'm in Melbourne. There'd be more here.
But there's gonna keep Australia. Like there's going to keep being more Australian resellers. So yeah, as it continues to grow, that's definitely like a really awesome idea. And it would totally make sense. I think we just need to hit another level before we get to that point, because right now, like it's just too sparse. You know what I mean? Like I see all the Americans like meeting up and I live down the corner from Reezy Resells. I'm like,
Right.
I live down the corner from your grandma. Like absolutely no. You know what I mean? So it just doesn't make sense yet.
She could teach you about dresses, 100%.
She could teach me about vintage Kmart.
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, here, I can't believe how many resellers there are. There's just tons. And even people who have a regular job, it's become cool to go hunting. Do you guys
I can't believe it's cool now.
Do you have a trend where retail shops are going out of business because they can't compete with online? Because here, it's like every week, major retailers are shutting down. Do you feel like that's a thing?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's only just starting to happen though, surprisingly. It's not like it's been that way for a long time. It's the online stuff is a very new thing for Australia. So yeah, it's only just starting to knock all the retailers.
I think it's now starting to hit like some of the big retailers, but it's been happening to like a lot of independents for I don't know, at least 10 years. Especially like I've noticed like around my area, they're just like I don't know, dress shops or suit shops and stuff that used to be there and no longer there, and you would just assume that retail's hit them hard. I mean, online retail's hit them hard.
What kind of happened was that we all had all these small businesses around us, you know, like the tiny hardware shops and you know, tiny furniture shops, and then the big companies like Westfield and whatever, and came up with their own versions that are just massive warehouses. So basically these big companies ate the little ones, and now they're complaining that the internet's going to eat them. And that's what's currently happening. We don't really have any small boutique stores anymore. We do, but not nearly what we had before. So the big companies have eaten them, and now they're crapping themselves that the internet's going to come eat them. So that's why we're being taxed and we're being told the internet's scary and bad, because they're starting to realize it's actually making a big dent on their income.
That's it.
How is cost of living?
Thanks, mate.
Where you guys live? Is it affordable, you think, to can you live on a reseller salary?
Oh no.
I like to think it's possible, but I think it's going to take a lot of work. There are very big resellers out there, but not a lot of them like there are in the States. I think it takes a lot more work to make it work as a full-time income, especially if you live in a city where you kind of have to be earning at least, you know, $1,500 a week to make ends meet, sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very subjective question, but I mean, like the whole scalability, you do it really, really well. Like from what we can see online, you like the scaling out, like the reselling business, but I mean that's kind of one of the reasons why more recently I'm continuing on with the reselling, but it's not a huge focus because I think in order to just like to scale it big, in Australia at least, I don't see it to make all too much sense. I think like learning or applying like more of like an e-commerce route, and finding a supplier and selling a product, might be a little bit more better return on time
Like
long
your
term.
Cody wallet.
Like my Cody wallet. Plug.
Plug Cody.
Yeah.
I'm
That's my take.
beginning to see quite a few people diversifying with different income streams. People have, they do a little wholesale, a little bit of, we have one or two private label products they're doing. They have a small little eBay business. They have a YouTube channel. They have some affiliate income. All adds together to equal some type of living as an online entrepreneur.
I think the Australian cost of living, I'll speak as the mum.
Sure.
Because, if I was single and I didn't have a kid, I'd be like, YOLO, I can eat noodles. Let's just try and be full time. But I can't do that. Bills need to be paid, and I actually need to cook a proper dinner. And the cost of living in Australia is insane. And I'm looking at some of the full-time Americans, and they're like, we're paying like all our bills. And I'm like, your bills are like half of what our bills are. You know what I mean? And I think I personally don't know a full-time Australian eBayer. I know they're probably out there. I don't follow any of them. I know some of us do really well, but it's all expensive. Like, our life is just too expensive to really make it on eBay. I think Darren makes an excellent point. If you diversify, you could definitely get there, but I don't see anyone becoming full-time just by selling used things on eBay.
I think it's possible, but sorry. I think it's possible, but not with just going to thrift stores and trying to find something.
Yeah.
I think because even yesterday, for example, I spent all day going from thrift store to thrift store to thrift store trying to find things. I found 2 bags worth of clothes for me to list over this week. I'm trying to fill a 500 item store at the moment, and I'm struggling with like 30 items in there right now.
There's just not enough. I know that hustler down under who's on Instagram, he has just recently, you should all follow him. He's just recently come up with a deal, I think with some thrift stores, where he's getting wholesale from them. So he's getting large amounts and sorting through them. He's the first one that I really know in Australia who's like gone to the thrift stores and been like, give me a massive amount. Because as Amanda said, like there's not enough. Like, you could go to op shops all day if you wanted, and there's just not going to be enough. It's just how it is. We don't have the bins. We're not going to walk away with 70 pounds worth of stuff. Like, 70 pounds worth of stuff is basically like 2-3 weeks of op shopping here.
I wanted to make one more point, which is Darren had mentioned iPhone 6s being abundant when, let's say, the 7 comes out. When the iPhone 8 comes out, there'll be millions, literally, of iPhone 6s for sale, and the market will tank. Not only will people be willing to give them away for super cheap, but there'll also be a flood of them for sale. And that's those are like sort of seasonal things that people capitalize on, which is very difficult again to build a business on. Because if you were to buy, let's say, 1,000 iPhones in that 1 month period, and you wait for the craze to go, the market to sell out and the price to go back up, you can only do that with certain items. It's not as it's a different kind of business.
Seasonal. Definitely agree. I haven't sold an iPhone in months because of that.
I'm trying to think of because from what the 6-pound parcel means you could ship boots almost and have it still fit under the category. And in the States, it's a little cost prohibitive. It's definitely over $20 to ship a 6-pound pair of boots. So I wonder if there's if it's not a size 9 or smaller men's, it's pretty expensive in the States to ship shoes. And I send a ton of shoes to Australia. So I don't know if that's the case, and I don't know how to get into I was really heavy into the sneaker game before in the past. I wonder how it is to acquire mass amount of shoes in Australia, because that £6 for $12 is not too bad. If your average selling price is over $60, you can get the nicer end shoes. I wonder,
Darren, because all the only shoes that I find at the thrift stores are like from Kmart. Like I never find nice shoes. I always just go there just like praying that I find a unicorn, and it absolutely never happens. And I went one time and I found some Givenchy booties and some Jeffrey Campbell's, and that's the height of my shoe career. Like other than that, it's just flat.
Yeah, I found shoes at thrift stores were really expensive. All the shoes I've gotten have been from garage sales.
So I have
Again,
two more ideas. Last week I had a gentleman on the show named Prince who doesn't have anything in his area. So he called every pawn shop in his area looking specifically for GoPros. He's built up a relationship, because a GoPro, I'm sure, is a hot selling product in Australia as well.
Yeah.
And
I think any electronics are really.
What about pawn shops? Is that something that exists in Australia where people...
Yeah, they do. Yeah, actually, I watched that video of yours last night. I thought that's really clever. I've never considered pawn shops. Definitely something there.
Something to consider. And then two more ideas. I tried that same concept with shoes, and I called 20 cobblers and was able to get about 25 pairs of shoes from people who they've expired their date and they're going to be donated. So they once people have left them there for over a certain period of time, they just get rid of them.
I think that pawn shops here, like I know you guys have those American pawn shop shows and stuff, and it's like, oh, you can find cool stuff at the pawn shop.
But yeah,
I know they're fake, I know, but pawn shops here, as far as I know, and in my circle, they're still considered like seedy.
They're
I pretty
seedy
much
here,
think,
for sure.
Yeah, they're seedy, and like I would never actively go to a pawn shop, so I hadn't even thought of that. And cobblers, I don't know when the last time I saw a cobbler was.
And then the last idea I had for you was dry cleaners.
Because
I do believe there's a way to get it, and if you get an item from a dry cleaner, of course, it's going to be nicely pressed and ready for photographs.
That's a really good idea.
If you can get it. So my goal is to try to help 1,000 people make a full-time living. I don't know how, but I'm going to try to figure out a way to do it. And I wonder if there's some creative ways, because I have seen Australian eBay accounts that are over 100,000 a month in 7-figure stores. I don't know what they're selling yet, but there's ways in there. And I think
they're all really good ideas. I wouldn't have even thought of the pawn shop and like a dry cleaners. I wouldn't have even thought of that. I was in one this morning and I didn't even consider that.
So I'm going to link all of your guys' Instagram, and Darren, I know you have a YouTube channel in the description, but real quick, if you guys can a little bit, let us know where we can find you, and if there's a good way to reach out to you, because I do think we can make a small little community of Australian resellers, because I've learned a lot. I don't want to take for granted the cool things we have here. So Amanda, do you want to start? Where can people find you?
Yeah, sure. I'm thrift2sell with the number 2 on Instagram and YouTube. I only just started up my YouTube channel. I've only got like 3 videos so far, but I'm hoping to get a video out every week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
New subscriber.
Yeah, new subscriber after this. I'm on Instagram at Garage Sale Hustle. I've also recently, I drive on Uber for extra cash as well on a Friday and Saturday night. And I found that like, I just get some either interesting or super, super funny people. And with their consent, I upload basically videos or compilations of the trip to YouTube. So that YouTube channel is called Darren Levy Official. Take a look. It's all a bit of fun. And yeah, this is actually really cool as well, funny. Because thank you. This is cool because like I said at the beginning of this call, I don't know many Aussie resellers. So I mean, if this is going to be popped on YouTube, I'd love love to see in the comments just like how many there are out there, and I'd love to connect.
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram, but like I'm happy to diversify that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
What about you, Rose? Where can we find you?
Just on Instagram because I'm too nervous to make YouTube videos yet. Just at Reselling and Rose.
Awesome.
So I post probably way too much, and I'll lurk all your Insta stories. So how's about that?
That's awesome. Yeah, if you guys haven't noticed, there's a time difference from California to Australia. It is 11 p.m. here, but 4 p.m. for you guys, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the afternoon.
So I wrote a book on Uber people, Darren. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna send you a copy of the book, a hardcover.
That's so good.
That's brilliant.
As my gift for you guys being on my show, I really appreciate it.
So you were driving and you put like it into stories.
Yeah, so I basically wrote about the 50 most interesting people that I met. I was gonna do 10,000 rides, like you can see the theme that I like the number 10,000, but I only ended up doing 3,000 rides before I didn't want to drive it anymore. Originally, I was going to write about the experience, but the people were more interesting.
That's
absolutely.
Cool.
That's really clever. That's cool.
I did it on Kickstarter, and I was able to finance the illustrations, which cost me about $4,000.
Wow.
But the illustrations are really cool. I'll send you guys an autographed copy for being on my show.
That's amazing.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Thanks, Chris.
This is a gentleman that I picked up that killed somebody in a DUI. I picked him up right after he got out of jail.
Oh,
That's crazy.
That's brilliant.
It's crazy. So I think you're gonna have a really fun time with it because the artist that I did this with, he didn't know what he was illustrating. After the ride, I would call and describe the person and the scenario as a voicemail, and then he would draw it, and then we would go back and forth. It took a year.
Oh, wow.
That's brilliant.
Very, very fun project. So
that's very cool.
I don't know the best way to get these to you guys, but I'll send you a copy, and I have it
in a 500-kilo satchel.
That's right, a 500-kilo satchel. It is just under 500 kilos, actually. I think it's like probably 450 grams.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Thank you so much. That's sick.
That should be really
clever.
Awesome.
So, and Darren, you should definitely do that. I'll have links actually in the video as well, so people can click and get in. But thank you guys so much for your time. I want to respect you, and hopefully we'll have you guys on again in a few months. And hopefully we can have tried some of these strategies.
Yeah.
I would have never thought of all those things you suggested, and I think that Australians aren't. Well, I know, like you guys probably are. I'm lazy, and I know that we don't necessarily. We think that we don't have many options, and so we don't necessarily try and look for more. And so I think that the way that you suggest all these things that I would have never even thought of is super cool. And I know I've seen you do it to other people on your other video calls. And I think that's really awesome how you're always thinking outside of the box and you're always trying to help other people.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys in the next video.
Good night, Chris.
Thanks, mate.